Hey, Julia, good to see you. Welcome to Belonging Conversations, our monthly conversations on culture care matters. I am Mako Fujimura here in Princeton, and Julia is.
I am Julia Hendrickson, an artist living and working in the Los Angeles area.
Yeah, so good. Good to see you, Julia.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, this is our last podcast of the year. Uh, it went so quickly.
Amazing. I mean, how long we've been doing this for a while now.
How long have we been doing this?
Uh,
I haven't
Two
looked back.
years,
2 years, at least two
maybe?
years. Yeah. Yeah, because it was right after the pandemic, I think we um, kind of felt like we needed to connect obviously as friends and sojourners, but also um, thinking about our culture care movement out there. There are people who check in with us. You know, we have this newsletter that's free to everyone that Jacob Beard has been editing diligently, and he has really become a good writer in the process. I noticed, but this is another way to share creative journeys, to share what's happening in our lives, but also for people to ask us questions and to interact that way as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And you know this, and I don't talk about it very much publicly, but I am very aware of the COVID cautious community and the ongoingness of the pandemic. According to the
Yeah,
WHO, it is still classified as a
yeah.
pandemic.
Oh, I see. It's
And
not even an endemic. It's a
no,
pandemic
it's
still.
still a pandemic.
Did not
Um,
know that.
and there are many who still live lives that
Mm.
are very much altered and constrained by that. And
Yeah.
I think that having online conversations is an excellent way of always looking to the borders, which
Yes.
is part of the generativeness of the estuaries of the culture care movement, right?
Yeah.
And saying we can still be having generative conversation and action even as we remain at a distance.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Thank you for
that's
that.
that's part of
Yeah.
the beauty of these conversations
Hmm.
and the beauty of the work of culture care.
Yeah. Totally. Thank you, Julia, for clarifying. And I think those terms are important and to recognize, to be aware. I talk about art as being aware, but to be aware of what's really happening and how we can, as artists, serve into these margins that inevitably are pushed aside by conversations, even larger conversations that we have in public spheres. So, yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Mhm, mhm. And it's because of our relationship that we can clarify that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Um, because we have this ongoing conversation. And
Hmm.
that's part of history. But I wonder for our listeners what
Mm.
ongoing conversations they're a part of and how they find ways to push and pull in their material work, in
Hmm.
their work with others. What does that look like? What does that feel like?
Absolutely. I love that. I think that would be a worthwhile exploration to, we had somebody ask us fairly detailed questions to the newsletter side, and Jacob flagged it. And I think we're going to end up doing like a three-part series because it's such a important question about how does an artist's role in this circumstance will play out in specific ways, right? So, you know, how do you practice culture care in an environment that is not, you know, that is almost systemic, set up not to care or, you know, have certainly culture wars mindset. The rhetoric has been the dominant cultural way of talking about anything, right? So we end up not being able to get to the heart of the matter oftentimes, and artists should be able to. I also talk about how artists are, like bees or mason bees, meandering and pollinating. And we will notice those things perhaps first if there is tension or realities of oppression in the air or toxins, right, that we can detect by simply being pioneers in an environment. And a lot of times artists notice those things, but they don't have a community to talk about it. And so we want culture care movement to be one that is aware of what is happening in the margins. How are we able to then proactively create conversations in the larger spheres that is proactive and generative, rather than just complaining about it or creating art that is transgressive. That certainly, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but I think it's one of our stance to really try to focus on how can we be generative in that difficult space.
Yeah. And that was a question I was going to ask you this
Okay.
week, actually, because you posted your Silver Rain painting.
Oh, yes.
And for those that haven't seen that recent post of Mako's on his Instagram, and you've
Yeah,
likely posted it other places, but I came to it on your Instagram.
yeah,
Um, it's a memorial piece
yeah,
for the anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
yeah.
And as I looked at that and reflected on that, I wondered about your process
Hmm.
in did you experience the anniversary and say, I want to make a painting? Were you making the painting and
Hmm.
realized that it was
Hmm.
in regard? How did that
Yeah,
all come about for you?
that's a great question because sometimes I do a work that I intentionally or my intuition is ahead of me, and I'm working on it. All of a sudden, it takes a direction, maybe an unexpected direction. And I realize, oh, this was about this, this trauma or that larger reality, and then I try to honor that. But in this case, first I'm posting images on Instagram and other spaces like Substack. We have a Substack page that benefits I am, so I've been posting more intimate thoughts, that thoughts that I may still be working with. So sometimes it works actually like this in the background that may still be in process, that I'm trying to figure out what is this painting. But in cases of Silver Rain, it was an 80th commemoration of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and also Korean independence, and also so many things happening in that year. And so I was very conscious of living in a time when the generations who experienced the atomic bomb is dying away, and we don't have a living memory increasingly. So art, should fill the gaps in some way. Certainly not, we're not able to re-experience something as traumatic as that, devastating as that. Hopefully not personally, but in many places around the world, there are devastations, war zones, ground zero realities that we tend to not think about, perhaps, when we're in U.S. So all that combined, I wanted to be intentional about it, and I started a series of paintings called Silver Rain, and I was also at the time using silver. I continue to use silver as a main material for many of my work of late, and I'm fascinated by the tarnishing effect of silver and how that may play into a work of art that cannot be captured in Instagram. Like it just keeps changing. So if you take a photo of it and post it, next day it's different, really just gradually it will change. So all that to say that I really wanted to do a large painting that has many layers. This particular painting has over 150, maybe more layers, but of prayer. Each layer is a prayer. Each layer is a way to access how I am trying to push through, this enormously difficult past, and hopefully create a portal of some kind where at least we can talk about it. We can create something that acts as a peace offering in a time when there's so much fear and so much, violence and realities of polarization is everywhere. I really believe that artists have a responsibility to create something that speaks to realities of our time. And so the process is thinking about, this particular moment in time when we get to look back. And I am here in my studio, I'm able to work. Many times, as we know, we've been in situations where we couldn't work. So why not offer that time to fill in the gaps of reality and this past traumas that we have inherited, and how do we move forward? So those are some of the thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. When I reflect on it too, we've had this conversation many times,
Yeah.
how the materials also lead, right?
Mhm.
And I wonder
Yeah.
how the materials are responding to the paintings that are currently going on in the background.
Yeah, so everything I do, starts out with pulverization, right? So, these the materials I use for silver rain, they're pulverized minerals that are literally crushed for to create beautiful layers. Gold is this microscopically thin gold from Kanazawa, Japan, that's been prepared for Nihonga, Japanese paintings, but they are thin and they're created for paper and silk. That's why they adhere in certain way rather than, let's say, European gold, which is thicker. It's meant to be used for boards and different surfaces. Well, I'm using these microscopically thin gold on canvas here. So as soon as you gild it, it starts to disintegrate some, in between. And of course, people that may be why they don't use Japanese gold on canvas. But I love that fact that it starts to be distressed
Mhm.
right away. And so I'm trying to understand the flow of it, how things get worn down or exposed. I have layers and layers underneath that it gets exposed eventually. You don't see it right away. And um, this series started when I did the All Saints liturgical panels for Advent. So it's been, we just place the liturgical panels as we do every Advent season. We change it from ordinary time green panels to these red and gold. Well, actually, they're maroon and gold, but they used to be kind of this bright color. And now, after I think 7 years now, it's settled quite a bit, and the layers are getting exposed. And it's really beautiful how materials, minerals, and gold will interact with the environment. These panels come out in Advent times and Pentecost times. So they are out quite a bit, and they have sun exposure. So I have to think about that, light fast materials to ease of handling, because these are often exchanged by not museum people. So, I have to think about the pragmatics of it. But when I was exchanging it with my rector and Heijin, and my rector's daughters were there too, helping out. But it kind of became this communal, liturgy of um, changing panels, but also seeing these layers become more transparent and more available for us to talk about. So that kind of inspired me to do these panels, because every work, right, it gives generative questions back to us. If you pay attention, every work that we do um, is like posing questions back. Like, what if you did this way, or what if you didn't do it this way? And so it's like a scientific experiment where you kind of you have like 10 other paintings that you want to try to do. And in this case, I've done multiple paintings this style, but I wanted to do it, as size matters, and where and also the season matters when you're painting, especially with these materials. When it's a little bit colder and drier, the pigments will do certain things that you can't do in the summertime. So I was particularly interested in this way of layering that I wasn't able to do for the first panel. So I just wanted to see what would happen. But then, as you know, the process brings its own kind of conversation and dialogue. So all of a sudden, you're really drawn into, a particular way that the work itself is driving you to do. And then you end up with more questions at the end than you began.
It would be so interesting to see a show that was curated around the theme of
Yeah.
what would happen if,
Yeah.
like artists engaging with
Yeah.
material,
That's great. That's
you
a
know?
great thought. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's artist to artist, we're always asking, well, how did you do that?
Right.
Like, what?
Right. Hmm.
Because I'm looking at the two panels behind you and I'm like, wait, this one has the very clear
Yeah.
gold sheet grid, but
Yeah.
then
Right. Yeah.
were you using a shaker of gold? Did you start with gold underneath? How wet was it? Like,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
want like all
Totally.
those details, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
And it's so infinitely interesting.
It is interesting. And the work that really it's pregnant to ask those questions. They tend to invite people
Mm-hmm.
into the mystery of whatever it is that you're creating. And so it's not necessarily one-to-one, having a recipe and then executing it. It tends to be a process in which if you're an artist trying to tap into the mystery of creation, you have infinite possibilities. and that's why you limit yourself,
Mhm.
because to me, it's like if I had multiple materials going on at the same time, it would be hard to control
Mm,
the infiniteness of it. But I found that restraint and limits are very helpful because then you can focus on how the expansiveness of that particular realm is, or particular materials doing particular thing, is going to inform, also tied in with a message, right? Because we have been talking about pulverization, talking about layers of pulverized materials, creating splendor as it captures the realities of trauma, right? And so that's a theme that can go in so many different directions. So I'm finding myself limiting more and more and creating these tight
mm,
parameters,
mhm,
and then hoping that the materials will create a portal, that speak on its own in a sense to ask deeper questions. But I also find that, it's a journey, as you noted, that really is enhanced by conversations like this, to and you can have a direct conversation with the viewer, but also conversations across time, you know.
mm,
So I had this privilege of being in Amsterdam last summer. One of my highlights this year was to go to Rembrandt House, where his studio is intact and his materials are still there. He used the same materials I did, and I was like so excited because had you noticed me so excited, she was like, what's excited about you? This is just a canvas. I said, these are the same weight of canvas I use portrait linen. And she was like, really? How can you tell? And I'm like, I know the substance, and and so like across time and space, artists can have these conversations, and you're kind of inviting them into the studio all the time. Anyways, you're having these conversations, and not just visual artists, but composers and poets and so it's quite amazing what if you can trace all those things to capture some of that creative imagination.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. I uh I totally get it. When it's like, wait, they're using the same how is that possible, first of all? And
Yeah, yeah.
oh, they have good taste. I must have good
Yeah,
taste.
that's right. Yeah. As if
Or
it's been validated by,
it's so validating.
yeah.
It feels so good. You and Rembrandt, man.
I know.
Congratulations, Mako.
Thank you, thank you. I was so excited, right? And I was like, yeah. But these
That
things,
is, I mean,
yeah.
wow.
These things happen, I think especially if you pay attention to materials and somewhat, we talk about AI and digital technology and advancement of people freaking out over these things, which perhaps we should be, but at the same time, this materiality, a substance of what we deal with, somatic reality, is not being shaped by any of this. In fact, it's the other way. We can shape the technology to do things that we want it to do, and we can impose certain parameters around that. So I feel like this is an exciting time. When you can really harness that kind of information available to us and um, be able to be more in tune with materials in front
Mm.
of us and like literally like love your materials, like as you and I do. It's just like, oh, we're not only experts, but we are the stewards of it. And
Yeah.
and when you come to that place, you realize, oh, if Rembrandt used this material, Van Gogh used this, paint, you kind of resonate and you find yourself in the stream of
Mhm.
aesthetic consciousness, that that pops up once in a while and wink at you and say, you're not alone.
Yes.
You think you are, but you're not alone in thinking what you're thinking, creating what you're trying to create. Because ultimately it's hard work. You can't the thing to go from A to B takes such a long time, you know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I think about the time I was at the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe, and they
yeah,
have her palette and her paint
yeah,
box there,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
you see the colors, you see what she's using, the tubes, etc.
yeah,
And it's like, this is who she was getting her materials from. And
yeah,
it's they have it all there in a vitrine and you can observe it.
yeah.
And
And that museum is beautifully built by Richard Gluckman, who's a New York architect that I know. Um, and he did the Andy Warhol Museum too. It's very designed to give attention to
yes,
these details. Yeah,
yeah,
wonderfully, yeah, designed.
yeah. And that's what can happen. It allows for that next level of understanding, right?
Yeah,
When we intentionally construct a space. And
yeah,
that's kind of been the theme of the whole conversation is how are we
mhm,
engaging with and constructing space? How
yeah,
are we engaging in
hmm,
constructing the future of AI?
yeah,
How are we engaging in constructing community around us,
hmm, yeah, absolutely.
materials,
Yeah,
all of that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and going back to the beginning of this conversation, I feel like, that's the missing link, that we don't necessarily have in the art world or technology or in even in media, we often don't realize on the ground what is happening, with let's say the pandemic, right? That's ongoing, right? But since it's invisible, you don't realize it. But again, artists are perhaps more likely to pay attention to those things.
Mm,
That they are language, kind of this hidden language that we are able to cultivate,
mm,
intentionally, and pay attention to and care for that reality. And oftentimes, you know, we think of, for instance, ground zero as, reality to run away from or ignore or put it in the past, right? But artists are always excavating, and
mm,
they're able to do so with so much care and attentiveness that it makes the entire enterprise of whatever we're doing to create a new reality in the place. That's what we're always doing, but artists do not let the threads disappear.
mhm,
And that's a really important part of caring for the soil of culture.
mhm,
It's something that we should be better at, speaking as a community.
mm. Yeah. And I think that that in some ways ties to the artist as prophet, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
that calling out and calling in,
Yeah.
that perpetual awareness
Yeah.
of the outsider and what right action is in regards to that.
Yeah. Prophet gardener, maybe. Yeah. We're always cultivating and
How are
digging.
we cultivating the garden of culture, as you
Yeah.
often say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So that's good.
Very exciting.
I know. So, well, have a great end of the year, everyone. And it's been such a pleasure to journey with you. If you have any questions or things that you want us to discuss, or we should probably come up with a way where we ask these challenge to curators and people to, hey, what if you did this? We'd love to be part of that. So this has been great. This belonging conversation has been a touch point for me every month. Not only it's been a way to be in touch with our community, but it's and with you, but it's also been a way for me to ask these questions in a deeper way. So thank you, Julia, for your journey.
Thank you, Mako.
Okay.
Always good to be in conversation together.
Yeah. See you next year.
Happy New Year, everyone.